Alright, part two. What happened is some animal knocked that oil can over that he had out there in the driveway, and because he didn't secure the oil can full of old motor oil, he had done an oil change about a month ago or so, and because he didn't secure the motor oil, an animal knocked it over. I think it may have been the baby dog running over it and knocking it over. And the motor oil had spilled into the driveway and emptied out the entire oil can, and it's like a bucket of old motor oil. And so that was that emergency that he was talking about. I thought he was just exaggerating, but it's still not an emergency. But he could have said it in a normal voice, even though I'm recording a video. So I don't see the point why he can't say that in a normal voice. Right? So he can say, turn the video off right now, make part two, I need your help right now, blah blah blah, motor oil spilled. And he could have said all of this, but I think he's embarrassed about saying this publicly. But again, whoever lives with me, I will talk about what happens in my in these these surroundings that I live in. So and I have the right to do it. I have the right to talk about all of this because that's my life. And I need to talk about it. So then I turned the video off, of course, and we talked about what happened, and he was all upset and real angry, and I was wondering, is he blaming me for it now? So, and then he's admitted that he's not blaming me for it, that he is taking the responsibility for it because he didn't secure that old motor oil container that was out there where the lid had been, the threads had been stripped and ruined, so that lid wasn't even completely safely on, which a real large lid that has a screw thread on it, and those threads are ruined because people have over tightened that before at, I don't know where that was, at an oil change place. And he was real mad about that, and mad about a bunch of things, except for taking responsibility for what, that he did not secure that thing. Then he will make excuses, and so it just goes on and on and on, like he's making excuses that they stripped these threads, and that they did it, and I didn't know, and I didn't know it was not safe, and I wanted to bring it to the garage, but I thought it was safe, blah 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 blah. Always kind of like there is this element of not taking any responsibility for it. Okay, so which makes me really angry when I see that, when I see people not taking any responsibility for their own actions. So we had a longer discussion on this, and I said, you have to take responsibility for this 100%. I wasn't even out there. I have no idea what was going on. I was in the house for the last 2 hours at least, and then he was thinking how he's going to mop up the oil now, and we've had oil spilling before down on the lower parking lot when the well driller came, and he has this really old dirty truck that had oil leaks onto our parking lot, really large oil leaks, and because he had used sodium bentonite clay for the this oil for this well drilling, water well drilling process. There was a whole bunch of that sodium bentonite clay all splattered around, and I said, all you have to do is you take these excess amounts of sodium bentonite clay that is not food grade. You take that and you just pour it over those oil leaks that are on the cement, and you let that soak for a couple of days or maybe a week even, and then it will have absorbed and adsorbed. That's what it does. It adsorbs and absorbs the molecules, the oil molecules, the lipids, into its own molecular structure. That's what happened. And then it also dried on the pavement, and a week later or so he could just shovel it up, and there was no more oil underneath. It had completely adsorbed and absorbed the oil in a safe way, non-toxic way. And then, of course, you have to dispose of the dried clay that had absorbed the oil or any toxin. You have to put that into a trash bag, and you have to dispose of that safely. You can't bury this. This is an environmental hazard. You can't put that anywhere. It's not safe. It's not safe for kids and animals. It should never go into the earth or into groundwater or any kind of watershed. This should be disposed of safely. That has to be brought to the hazardous waste disposal place. Okay, we have to do the same thing here. Obviously, we don't have any more sodium bentonite clay that was around the well. That has already integrated into the ground. But we have this land here is sitting on very rich, very red, iron-rich, red kaolin clay, and there is some kind of quarry down there next to the water tank, some kind of half dug up place, mountain that was still there from the original construction work from 1983. So there's like this half mountain of red kaolin clay that they had dug into it. Partly when we moved here had some moss and stuff growing in there already, but still you can dig into it with a spade from the side, and you can fill a whole bucket, a 5-gallon bucket, with that red kaolin earth, and then you can, whether it's moist or dry or kaolin earth, you can just shovel that up, put that in a bucket, and you can pour that evenly onto oil spills. And that has the same function. It has adsorption and absorption processes, and you can let that soak in there for a week, and then you can, after a week or so, particularly if the sun shines on it and dries out the clay, then it's just like a powder, and you can just shovel that up, and there will be no more oil underneath. And that's a very, very good process. This is very safe to do this. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to I'm going to get a bucket of the red kaolin earth from downstairs, and I will pour that over it. And then we go to the California house tomorrow and for a couple of days, and when we come back, he can shovel that up, and hopefully it will have adsorbed and absorbed all that oil that's underneath. So to make it safe for the environment, for the animals, for the baby dog, and so on. So that's what's going on here, and I think it's very important to take responsibility for things that that goes wrong, So if I make a mistake, I take full responsibility for it, and I sit down and contemplate on how to fix that situation. And I expect the same from other people. Okay, and that is usually in most people, they don't take responsibility. Okay, and Paul does not. He tends to not take responsibility for his mistakes that he makes. And there's always this energy of blame or of making excuses, and that's not taking responsibility. Taking full responsibility means I don't blame anyone. I don't make excuses. I don't say, oh, they did it like this. That made it hard for me. I didn't know. Or blah. No. Taking full responsibility means I don't look at others in this process. I don't point the finger at anyone, and I don't blame anyone or any situation or any circumstance or the weather. Okay? I take full responsibility, and I say, I should have done this better. I should have taken care of this before. I should have secured it, and so on. With whatever situation there is, whether that's something physical or something emotional. If I made the mistake, I take full responsibility for it. I don't blame anyone for it. I don't get into anyone's face with this. I don't complain. I don't whine. I don't make accusations. I might cry about it, but that's not going into anyone's face. That's the difference between crying about something or whining and complaining. See, whining and complaining that is when a person is not taking responsibility for their life, for their actions. The whining and complaining process is a process of not owning the mistake. It's a process of blaming others, of making excuses, and usually blaming others and blame shifting everything on others and feeling victimized in this process as well. So that's what whining and complaining is. Crying about it without doing that, that's not whining and complaining. I can cry, I can sit here, I might even share this, whatever I feel, with someone else, but that's not into someone else's face. That's not blaming the other person. Paul doesn't even know the difference between crying about something or whining and complaining. So he does not know the difference. But that's why it's important that I explain the difference to him, and that I make videos and explain the difference to anyone who watches the video, because I see that a lot of people don't seem to know really these differences and the nuances between different mental states. So that's why I think it's very important to talk about all of these mental states and what we do about it, how we go about it in fixing it, whether that's jealousy or anger or feeling victimized or whatever it is, or wanting to blame something physical like the oil spills on someone else. I bet ExxonMobil would do that. They'll publicly blame someone else, right? Instead of owning it. And now that's really serious when there's massive oil spills happening. That's why I think it's very dangerous. That's why raw oil should never even be brought to the surface, because it's environmentally too dangerous and too toxic and too hazardous. Okay, that should never be brought to the surface. Raw mineral oil by itself is not toxic, but when it's being processed in the petroleum industry, made into benzines and gases and so on, then it becomes toxic, obviously. When the chemical structure is being altered, it becomes toxic. raw mineral oil from the earth is not toxic, but if the raw mineral oil goes into the ocean, it suffocates the animals, and it can suffocate like aquatic animals and amphibians in any kind of wetland area environment. Okay, so it does not belong into the environment at all. And old motor oil is also infused with many other chemicals from the engine and so on. And that is definitely an environmental toxin, and it's very dangerous to leave that out there and let kids and animals get into it. So it's very important to take responsibility for our actions, for the way we handle things in our daily lives. And I do that, and it feels really, really good. It feels extremely empowering to take responsibility for your own mistakes, to own your own mistakes. You know, whatever I did wrong, and maybe I don't know sometimes, and then I listen to the other person, even if they're yelling or something. Yeah, that makes it harder to listen, but I have to listen. What do they say? And then I have to evaluate. Is it true? Was it my fault? And then I think about it. And then I come to the conclusion, yeah, that person is right. It was my fault. I should have handled it differently. This is enormously empowering to do that. Okay. And not blame someone else and just shed all of the responsibility onto someone else's shoulders. Okay, so that's not empowerment. That's unempowerment to do this. That's very unempowering. Doesn't feel good. Doesn't move us forward in our lives. So if I own my mistakes, if I listen to other people attentively and I think about it and I think these things through and I come to the conclusion, yeah, I could have handled it differently in this or that situation, that's extremely empowering, and that's extremely healing also. So I'm not showing you. I have the camera faced this way. Yes, you are my everything. Yes, that is what you are. Oh boy, I dropped that. I dropped the camera guard again. Oh no. How can I do this? I dropped the camera guard. Yes, you are beautiful. Beautiful beyond imagination. Yes, that is what you are. Drop the camera guard, and now here's a little glimpse into my mental illness, and I'm happy to share this with other people. I'm not embarrassed about it. Why should I? I mean, it is embarrassing, but why should I be embarrassed about a broken leg, right? So no, I wanted to. That's something I was thinking about the other day. Very important information. Why should I be embarrassed about a broken leg? Why should I be embarrassed about having meningitis? Or why should Friedrich Nietzsche even be embarrassed about having syphilis, right? That's something that's even more socially unaccepted. But why should anyone even be embarrassed about any kind of illness, including a mental illness? So here we go. OCD, baby. Okay. The camera guard fell. Now what? Here's the camera guard, and I can't pick that up just like this, like everyone else would. No. Here's what I have to do. I have to take my shoes like this here, and I have to see, this is how I do it. And now I have to make sure I don't touch the floor. Okay. Pick it up now. That's OCD. That is full force OCD and avoidance, and that is not good. Now I can touch it, even though it has touched the floor, luckily, thank goodness. If I would let myself really go, I guess, I don't allow it. But if I let myself really go, then I would have OCD with this now. I would have to throw this away, have to make a new one, because it has touched the floor. So. And even though there are some areas on the floor that stuff that I have bad OCD with has touched, but I want to work on it. So I want to work on my mental illness. And even though the baby dog steps on those areas, I don't allow myself to have OCD with his feet. I still let him walk on my bed after he has stepped on those areas. And it may not feel so good, but I let him do it anyway. And I am very, very glad, and I feel very accomplished, for managing my brain in a way that I can allow that, even though I have problems with it. But then again, OCD, like also with that OCD project, the psychiatrist, he has these 10 levels of intensity. So he would always ask these people, so from a scale of 1 to 10, what kind of OCD avoidance and horror level do you feel with this or that item, or this or that situation, or whatever people suffer from, So I would say this is probably, I managed to bring this down to level 1. So that's why I can tolerate it. But there are certain things that that are definitely level 10. And among that is any kind of cigarette particle. So that's level 10. Cigarette particles, nicotine, any kind of tobacco particle, that's level 10 of avoidance for me, and disgust and horror and discomfort. Okay, so if I have a lover on the internet who I meet and he is a smoker, it's level 10. Okay, so I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea how to manage and overcome this. I really don't. I would be. I don't know what would win. The lust or the OCD. So that's a good question to ask. And then what would I do after the lover left and went back home? Then I would have to do a very thorough decontamination procedure, not because of the lover, but because of the particles that he has on him that come from an external source. So I want to emphasize this, make this very crystal clear. I have no OCD with the lover or with anyone as a person, if they touch something, like they touch packaging materials, like you go into a store, you buy something, I would have to, when I'm in the van and I open up a candy bar, I open up the candy bar, I put the candy bar on my lap, I throw the packaging paper away, and then I have to go through a decontamination procedure. I have to wipe my hands very thoroughly, not because of the virus. No. That too, that's like sort of like marginal. No, the main reason is for something that other people would never even think about. It's because of tobacco, nicotine, cigarettes, and any kind of drug paraphernalia and substance that could be possibly on people's hands and thus rubbed onto the packages of any kind of grocery items and so on. That's why, for me, that's level 10. So that's why I freak out when Paul comes here with a particularly with a cantaloupe, half cantaloupe with a spoon in it. Here, you can spoon it. It's like, hell no, of course not. That has to be, oh man. And I wanted to tell him, you gotta wash that first in baking soda, really soak it. People not only have tobacco products on that cantaloupe, they don't wipe their asses when they're harvesting those. Some of them, I don't know what they might do with those cantaloupes. So obviously, yeah, all of this is level 10. And yeah, I also have severe OCD with people's body excrements, of course. Yeah. So, but here comes the real problem, the worst problem, I would say. Probably worse than the nicotine and the body excrements. The absolute worst. And that's what ties into this video now. That's why I'm making these videos. I'm talking 90% about other things. But that's what I really want to address. Is and that's very painful to talk about, and it's very embarrassing also, but I think it's very important for me to talk about this. The worst OCD is with when some certain type of women touched something. And I cannot touch that afterwards. Here, there's my baby dog. It's nice here and cozy. Oh yeah, this is good. So then, it's probably worse than the nicotine. I would say it is. So here's what happened a couple of years ago. That was in December. That was the month when the papa died, and it was all horrible, and I was already like in a bad mental state because I knew the papa wasn't well. I had ordered ski pants, and one of the ski pants, I saw the package had been torn. And they looked obviously a woman, these are women's ski pants, a woman tried those on. And I pulled them out of the package anyway, and I was thinking whether I should use these pants or not use these pants. After all, I don't know who tried it on. I don't know. What I don't know doesn't bother me, kind of, but it doesn't go very far with OCD, this kind of thinking. So I had laid these pants on the floor, which I should not have done. I should not have even taken them out of the plastic layer after I saw the plastic layer had already been broken. So someone had tried them on and folded them up and put them back into that plastic layer. So the other pants I'd ordered too, the other pants was still in the plastic layer, sealed and all of this. So they obviously had not been tried on. So then then I decided I returned them to the store because they had been tried on. The plastic layer seal was broken and all of that, and actually ripped and all. So someone had taken the pants out and tried them on and then returned them back to the store. So I had to return them because there's no way I can even wash them and then wear it, because that's level 10 of avoidance, because another woman had tried them on, and particularly a woman of my size. So, and that's what I have particular OCD with, and it's very embarrassing, and I'm probably gonna get judged and all of that for it, but this is what's going on. And I think if we don't talk about it, if we shove it under the rug, if we avoid talking about it, if we even pretend it's not there, then it just takes on another level. The suffering takes on extreme proportions, and I see that in other people when they don't face these things, when they don't face the jealousy, when they don't face these act outs that they're doing all around it, and own these wrong act outs and the mistakes and the bad management of the mental illness, or even denial and all of that, which is really bad when people are in denial. So when that happens, then people suffer so bad that they end up having to take drugs and so on. And it's happening. It's happening in the world. That's what causes people to go under the knife, have plastic surgery done, and so on and on and on and on and on, because they're not facing the mental illness problem that's underneath. And I would rather face the mental illness problem and share it with others and help other people face it as well. Okay. What I'm trying to say is, I face it, and so can you. You can face your jealousy, your whatever territorialism, the avoidance that comes out of it. I'm not acting anything out on others. There are plenty of other people that act out on others. There are women that act out on other women that they're jealous of. The worst example of this is the Teal Swan hater ladies. The haters of Teal Swan. That takes exactly what I'm talking about, to that heightened mental illness, insanity level. If they could just face it right here. Jiddu Krishnamurti talks about it. He says, face it, that is the storm that clears, that is the storm that clears the fog, why be in this fog, mental fog, and then end up in a horrific storm of total insanity? Why not do the storm now, bring on the rain clouds, let it rain, let it cry out, become aware about it, become conscious about it, talk about it to someone, to a psychiatrist maybe, to a psychotherapist at least, Talk this out, cry it out. That's the least you can do. Make a video would be even better. It will be helpful for other people, because there's a lot of other people that don't go to a psychiatrist or therapist. And I don't recommend a psychiatrist, because they're always prescribing toxic drugs. Go to a therapist. Go to a holistic therapist. A psychotherapist who's into holistic healing. Holistic modalities, go out into nature, sit there in meditation, drink herbal tea, okay? Much more effective. There's an herb growing in the desert that is so powerful, that is more powerful than Vicodin or Zyprexa, Risperdal, or whatever these drugs are called out there, pharmaceuticals, narcotics, and so on. It's all of that in one, without any side effects. I have already made tea with it. It's a form of sage that grows out there. It has like a yellow star-shaped flower. It's a form of sage. It smells very much like sage. It's a desert type of sage. There are different types of sages. Sage actually also means wise old person. So if these plants are called sage, and they're wise old gurus, these plants, then I better make tea with it because maybe that's gonna help. And it did. We drove over these high mountains, and Paul said, I'm surprised you're not yelling and screaming out of total panic and freaking out. So I was actually very composed and very calm. I was very surprised just because of that herb. Before, I was like a nervous wreck, and I was really worried driving over these mountain ranges out there, and then the Antelope National Forest. Very, very high mountain ranges that it's like an airplane perspective. And we drove over that with the papa in the van, and suddenly there was a big rock, and I was like, Paul. And I was able to alert Paul because he was like looking out there. Oh, look at the beautiful view, like how high was that? That was like 6,000 feet high or something. Like, don't look at the view in that moment. There's a rock in the way. And if you don't pay attention to it, if you don't stop before the rock, we will go down that cliff. Okay, so, and there was no railing, nothing. Just a very rudimentary mountain road, and very narrow. I wouldn't even know what to do if someone came from the opposite direction. So Paul got out of the van, he moved the rock, and we continued to drive, and nothing happened, and all because of that sage. That sage saved our life, saved my mind, and it saved our lives. Okay, that's how powerful that is. So it's very important to do these things holistically, and it's extremely important to face whatever we're facing, whether that's jealousy or greed or territorialism or whatever gender specific type of mental illness, because the ego latches onto our biology, it latches onto our sexual orientation and sexual experience, and experience about ourselves, who we are, about our own physical needs and so on. The ego latches onto this and creates an entire storyline. Out of it, when there is an identification happening, I identify as a plump, chubby woman, fully straight, and very, very, very estrogen driven, and I have pain from childhood, which doesn't by itself pertain to the estrogen that I obviously developed in puberty and into adulthood. So when I was a child, I was still a baby, abandoned by the mother. But this trauma, when the baby is not able to resolve that trauma properly, although I have enough to survive, to have survived, the Medusa made it possible that I did survive this abandonment and all of that, and the coldness from my mother. But I still have this trauma, and that trauma then gets carried on into adulthood, and then the ego binds that into an entire storyline of that what I physically, biologically identify with, and then the ego identifies with that. And then because of that, when the trauma is unresolved, then it carries over into this existence of I'm a high estrogen level woman, and I'm fully straight, and I am jealous, and I have territorialism, and there are particles from another woman of my size on the pants or whatever they touched. Or she comes to a party, and then that's all level 10. Okay, of extreme avoidance and mental illness suffering. Don't laugh about me, haters, okay? You got your own issues, and your issues are, if you are acting out on others, that is definitely worse. That makes the world suffer. My illness, my mental illness, doesn't make the world suffer, it just makes me suffer. It makes the world suffer only when I start to become cold to that other person, to that other woman that I feel like, you're invading my space, you are coming into my territory or whatever, and you got your own curves, and you got your own boobs and butt and all of that, and the men, they go like, which one do I take, her or her? So I mean, this is it sounds kind of jolly and funny and all of this, the way I'm portraying it, and I laugh about that too sometimes. I laugh about myself. But the moment I feel this, it's not funny. It's not joyful. It does not feel good at all, right? It is like, oh, my childhood trauma comes up, Danny is gonna go for the other one, or nobody's gonna talk to me. I'm gonna sit there alone. Abandonment, childhood, I will be dumped, she's 30 years younger than I am, or whatever, Here we go, I am alone again, I'm dumped. And then fear, I'm not going to mention names, but I see movie stars that where the ego completely attached itself to their looks, okay? So when they get older and the looks fade away, with a lot of them, with almost all of them, some of them go under the knife for that. They let themselves be physically tortured. They take the risk of dying under anesthesia, right? All because they don't want to let go of the youth. They don't want to let go. They cannot age in a graceful way. They cannot allow themselves to be in whatever age phase they're going through, okay? So, and I'm not judging them at all, okay? I have 100% compassion for you, 100%. I want to mention some names, but I'm not going to, for their own privacy's sake, okay? Not because I know them, I don't know them, but because they don't deserve to be talked about this, because I already know they feel ashamed and all of this kind of stuff, and they don't want that out in the open. If they want it out in the open, they will bring it out to the open, but I leave it up to them to do it, okay? So I'm not going to force anyone to bring it out to the open. You can't force anyone anyway prematurely you can't force anyone at any stage, whether they're ready for it or not. Never use force in any way, physical or psychological force or coercion or whatever that people are using. I leave this up to other people. The only thing that I can offer is I can talk about my own stuff, okay? I'm 57 freaking years old. I'm talking about this, okay? And I know that many of you are 57 freaking years old as well, and that you are or older, and that you are suffering, and I see you suffer, and it's horrible, and I totally feel your pain, and I feel total compassion for you, and I know how hard this is and how horrible this is, particularly if you have built your entire life on this. You're estrogen loaded woman, you've been in show business, maybe you've been in the porno industry, you rely on your looks, and at some point, whether that's at age 50, 60 or 70 or 80, at some point, right? At some point, no matter how good your genes are, your genes might be really good, like mine are, okay, like 20 years longer lifespan or something, but there will come a point where you will most likely not be able to pursue this type of profession, or for various reasons, maybe even if it's not for looks that had faded away, then you will biologically not want to do this anymore, and or you're not, then you become forgotten in the public, and I can clearly see how painful that must be for a lot of people. I mean, I have done porn. I wasn't famous though, so lucky for me, I never became famous. Just because you're doing porn doesn't mean you become famous. So that can be like during that time I saw people recognize me on the streets and in stores, but that didn't last very long. That lasted for a couple of years, and that was it. And out of sight, out of mind. I didn't like working with these guys. So I'm very commanding and demanding, and they didn't like that either. So they want to work with people who are like, whatever, I do whatever you want. So that's not me. I have very clear ideas on about everything in my life, whether that is how you do your fucking, eating, breathing, living, composting, environmentalism, and the list goes on. Okay, so I know it all, baby. But not everyone is willing to listen. But that's why I make videos, because I want to capture what I come up with, what I invent, what I think about. I'm not an entrepreneur. I wish I was. I don't have the money. I don't have the capital for it. I don't have anyone to sponsor me with my ideas of labia, freedom, cushion, seats, and so on. I don't have that. Or the right kind of shoes that have no pressure points, and total comfort clothing, and the list goes on. No, I don't have anyone to support me with this, but it doesn't matter. The composition itself is what matters. Like Beethoven, he became deaf, and he was composing an entire unbelievable works of art that I listen to and that give me goosebumps. And he was already deaf for many years when he was composing these outer worldly compositions. So what matters is the composition, the composing process. He wasn't even sure whether this would be put into action, but it was, and maybe, and it was during his lifetime. For some artists and entrepreneurs in their head entrepreneurs like me, or inventors and shakers and movers and sculptors of epic sculptures, it's all in the head. It may be written down, but maybe posthum, as they say, after I died. Maybe some good Samaritan will come along and say, this is worth putting into action. Okay, I'll be very happy about this, because a lot of that stuff will make people happy and will make the world a better place, whether it's done during my lifetime or posthum. So, posthum really comes from the word after they have been buried. Hum is humus, the earth matter, right? You have been integrated into the earth, posthum. So Friedrich Nietzsche used this terminology a lot, because he knew that he was going to be posthum in no time with the syphilis that nobody had any cure for. So, and he was suffering. He called himself the crucified, because he was in the care of Sister Elizabeth and his mother, and he didn't like that at all. I laugh about it, but that's not funny at all. I mean, it must have been really hard for him. It must have been very difficult, and he had only a handful of people that even took him seriously, and his texts and his letters and his scriptures that were unfinished in the end, and made into a book that was falsified by Sister Elizabeth, which is really bad. So Friedrich Nietzsche was not a Nazi. He was against all of this. He was on no side. He said it many, many times. He said, I don't take any sides at all. I'm not on this side or on that side. Okay? I'm on the side of truth. I'm on the side of love and peace and the infinite cosmos. He loved the Gautama Buddha. Okay? That was the only philosopher that he really full-heartedly, wholeheartedly admired and felt one with. So, and that is the infinite. That's the infinite cosmos. That is the 8 on the side. So I'm going to wrap this video up now. We have to go into our own minds. We have to own our own mistakes. We have to acknowledge this is what I feel, okay? And let me not act it out, particularly not on others, okay? Let me not be cold to that other woman. I feel kind of cold right now. Oh, there's another woman in my territory that could, take customers away from me or whatever, So I know that's what we're all feeling, but you don't admit it. And I know it feels bad. Okay, I feel you 100% with this. And yeah, I had to block some because of that. I admit it, But I always try to sit with my pain instead of blocking. So I first stayed with them and communicated with them, and I was at least trying to be nice and warm, and I care about all. I care about them too, particularly if I'm not, I don't even see them, I don't even know what they look like. Maybe some of them are just sock accounts, right? By men that are behind that keyboard that is pretending to be some hot chick or something. But yeah, at some point that other person, whether it is Zane or an actual other trailer mama out there with big ass, So at some point she becomes pretty nasty because of her own territorialism, and yes, if she does have it, that's her own territorialism. If it's a guy, he becomes nasty because he wants to hurt me. He uses that sock account to hurt me. So either way, I have to blocky at some point when the other person becomes nasty. But I always try to sit with that instead of blocking, instead of acting it out. But yeah, in some cases it is painful. It gets a bit painful, so then I have to block. But that's still not acting it out on others. I'm just avoiding that other person. That's not acting it out on others. Acting it out is when a ferocious, hateful fan of Teal Swan or some other female, famous, sexy lady out there, when one of their fans turns, where it turns sour, where the jealousy takes over, that's when the fan existence turns into hate. Okay, so, and that happens so many times. In some cases, Teal Swan will make friends with people because she's way too generous. Okay, so in some cases she lets people even live with her in her house, and then they turn on her and stuff like this. So Teal Swan needs to be way more reserved and way more careful on whom she lets into her life. Because recently, just to sum this video up, recently a group of people from England have infiltrated into Teal Swan's life, following her around and stuff like this, pretending to be some kind of like a documentary filmmaking team, okay, to make an amazing documentary film about her work. Turned out they made a slander documentary about her, taking things out of context and so on. You can follow this on her channel, Teal Swan, on Facebook and YouTube. Make sure it has the check mark on it. So, but yeah, she made videos about it. She talked about this in depth, and that needed to be talked about. Very, very important. And she realizes that she has made mistakes in allowing these people into her life in the first place, that she was too trusting with this. I'm not holding that against her at all. I'm not blaming her for this. We make these experiences and we learn. These are hardcore learning experiences. But to come back to the subject, among this group of filmmakers, is a woman who is very much, tall, athletic type, like Teal Swan, very good looking, same type of woman. So, of course, Teal Swan will be in her territory. If she has emotional pain, which she has, I can clearly see it, okay, trauma, which then is identified and incorporated into her sexual perception of herself and her experience, hormones, the estrogen, straight woman, athletic type, that's not in my territory. So they're the athletic types, the skiers, the beautiful, the photo model types, but more athletic, very strong also. And kind of like a little bit they're not curvy built so much, but they're also very beautiful, of course. Very, very beautiful. Very sexy. They have a lot of guys after them, and of course these two women, they will be, if they're at a party together, the one with the emotional pain will feel the territorialism and will feel threatened by the existence of the other one. And that's exactly what's happening now with that fan of Teal's, or fan with that one lady from England who is absolutely obsessed with Teal Swan, but in a very toxic way, and in order to slander Teal Swan. So that's why she's part of this toxic documentary film crew. The other guys are Middle Eastern men that, I don't know, maybe they were even paid by someone behind the scenes to make Teal Swan look bad. And Teal Swan already, they've even attended her workshops. Teal Swan has even taken a lot of time to help this woman and to guide her through this, the inwardness process and all of this. She has a different name for this. Yes, the completion process. And I don't know how much that girl even was able to listen to her and to do this inwardness process. Maybe she just pretended to do this inwardness process because the ego doesn't really want to let go. And so she knew, all along she had this, the troll energy, ego energy of ha ha ha, I know why I'm doing this, hee hee. I'm tricking her. We're making her look bad in the slander documentary film. So when that's in the way, there's no way that her ego can let go, or she can feel even safe and to let go when she knows that she is part of this slander team. Okay, so she stands in her own way of healing in that moment. But she has extreme jealousy of Teal Swan. Okay, this came very close. This is right in your face. I mean, if you're attuned, you can see this very clearly. And she talked about this to a degree in one of her videos, that lady from England. Okay. Teal Swan has already worked a whole lot on herself, and is also way too generous with people. So, and very loving and cares about everyone. Teal Swan is a very advanced soul. She's a god level soul. She's the reincarnation of the goddess Dorji Yudronma. Very, very advanced soul, very close to Buddha level. Okay, and we have to accept that, so there's a Buddha level, and she has a lot to say. She's an influencer, and she's helping me a lot, and I humble the heck down, okay, and allow her to be that goddess, and I learn from her. Doesn't mean I have to put her onto an artificial pedestal. That doesn't mean I have to be a fanatic fan. It doesn't mean I have to be putting myself under her or above or pretend this or whatever. It's just, she is where she is. She's advanced. I accept it, and I learn from it. Okay, I learn from the stuff that she teaches. Okay, so the other woman from England is a stagnator soul. It's a beginner soul. How can she even see through any of these kind of things? How can her ego even understand any of this? That's why I don't know if there is a way for her to get this, what I'm talking about, to get what Teal Swan is talking about. She may not be able to. She's stuck in the rut of this territorialism, that jealousy, and it just loops itself, and she can't get out of it. And she suffers like hell from that jealousy. Okay, I feel sorry for her for that. If she can sit down in meditation, and even if it's not easy for that stagnator soul and that stagnator soul's ego to understand these things and overcome itself in that moment, I still recommend daily meditations, rigorous meditation. I recommend to her 2 hours of inwardness meditation every single day. Okay, you can do one in the morning, one before you go to bed. Rigorous meditation. You sit on the couch. I recommend not lying down, because in most cases you fall asleep. That you fall asleep is good too, but then you're bypassing the meditation process. You can also take a nap and fall asleep in the middle of the day. Okay, but do the 1 hour inwardness on the couch when you get up, and one before you go to bed. I highly recommend to you to do it. Do the Anapana breathing exercises with it. And don't run away. Don't let the ego run away into something other than I'm facing this thing full force. There is the Dorje Yudronma, the goddess, beautiful, stellar woman, Teal Swan, and you are feeling jealous of her. Face it. Face it, baby. You have no other choice. You have no other choice. Okay, I say this with utmost compassion to you. Don't hurt yourself or others any further. Don't make slander videos against someone else. Don't set someone afoot. Don't hit anyone. Don't do anything. Don't act it out. Don't be a bitch to anyone. Okay. You go into your own mind and allow the other person their space and their beingness, and you deal with your jealousy, okay? And you can say into the room, I am jealous. And I tell you what's going to happen. The tears will come, and that's good. Okay, let it flow out, flow it all out. I do this on a regular basis. Okay, I have to. I have no other choice, or I could not survive this existence. I have to do it. And every time I flow my tears out, I moved forward with my life, okay? And that's how we walk through life. That's the school of existence. And I love all of you beings. All. Take care, okay?